Good evening and welcome to another episode of Sports Federation TV. My name is Sadiq Biardin. Incidentally, I'm standing in for Alton Davids. Unfortunately, he couldn't be here. We cover a range of different sports on this show, and incidentally, this evening we are doing equestrian, if I'm correct. With me on the show is Sylvia Bruckner. Have I pronounced that correct?
Yes.
Sylvia, how are you doing?
Very well, thank you.
Good, thank you. And then we've got the beautiful and also very well-spoken Glenda. How are you?
Well, thank you, and yourself?
I am lovely. Equestrian, many people think it only involves horses. Does it? What is it? In a nutshell, Sylvia?
So we represent all equestrian sport in the Western Cape, and it ranges many different disciplines. So there are many things that you can do on a horse, and that's what we're all about.
Perfect. Tell me a bit about your involvement in the sport.
So I'm the president of the Western Cape Equestrian Federation, and we have the 6 districts all represented on our committee. They all have clubs, but in each of the districts and clubs there are many different disciplines that people participate in. So you could be doing dressage or show jumping, which is probably what people are familiar with, but then there are other disciplines like endurance and polo cross, and I could mention them all 14. It'll take us a long time, but yes, we're very active in all the different disciplines. Some are bigger than others, but it's a nice variation. And if you want to participate in the sport, you don't have to just participate in one event. You can, if your horse is talented, you can do 3 or 4 different disciplines.
Like in eventing, where it's a 3-phase sport. So you have dressage, show jumping, and cross country. And they use one horse for all 3 phases.
Wow.
Yeah. And
that's quite amazing.
Competition takes place over 1 weekend, and on the first day, which would say the Saturday, they would do their dressage, and straight after the show jumping, and the next day they would do the cross country.
I think my main question would be is how do these guys train and how often do they train?
Look, your horse, first of all, I think the wonderful thing about equestrian sport is that you have a partner, and that's your horse. And I think that's the big attraction to the sport. People love their horses and they adore them. You have to care for your horse. Your horse has to be exercised every day. So even if you don't feel like exercising, your horse needs exercise and it needs care. So yes, in most disciplines you would ride your horse every day, perhaps 1 day off, but you would do at least 40 minutes to an hour's exercise each day. And then your events could be longer.
You know, you mentioned 40 minutes per day. Where do these guys get the time?
They make the time. They make the time. A lot of them are, your juniors are school kids, and they go straight to riding, just like you would go to your other sport after school, your extracurriculars. They would go to their horse riding and have their lessons or train their horses, depending on what they're doing that day. And for the adults, yeah, they make the time. They either go before work, they catch a break during the day maybe, like I do sometimes, or after work, so they make the time.
Some yards have indoors or lights, floodlights, so people will make a plan.
Floodlit outdoor arenas or indoor arenas, yeah.
Before we went on air, you and I chatted a bit.
Yes.
And for the guys at home, I don't know if this incidentally makes sense or not, but you are physio, and you do treat the horses as well.
Yes.
So my question is, how important is it to actually maintain the physicality of your horse?
It's very important, and there are a lot of para-veterinary professions that riders use for their horses, from physiotherapists to chiropractors to body stress release therapists, massage therapists. So it's very important because you are working with an athlete, and just as the human athlete, which the riders are as well, in other sports, you would go to physio. Your triathletes go to the physiotherapist often. So your horse needs that because they're working very hard. It's a high performance athlete.
And some people think that people just sit on a horse and you don't get any exercise.
Yeah.
Well, I can assure you, if anybody who's never ridden before takes a 40-minute lesson, they will feel like they've had a good game of squash or even a good gym session afterwards. It's probably even
or
worse.
a hard cycle.
So yes, mostly it's quite a strenuous activity, but it's just something with a difference.
Yeah. For people who are interested, how does one get involved?
Well, I think, first of all, if you don't have a horse, you would need to find yourself a riding school in your area. And there are many different riding schools that are in different areas and regions. And they try and find someone who has a qualified instructor. If you're sending your children there, definitely make sure that they are qualified, and to learn to ride first. So even if you've got romantic notions of going for a hike on the Drakensberg or going for a ride on the beach, rather get yourself a few lessons first. We always recommend that.
Yeah, because horse riding is a dangerous sport.
Yeah.
You fall off, you get backed off, horse runs away with you. So there are these things, so you need to be able to ride.
Like our famous man Christopher Reeves, Superman.
He was an equestrian. He was an accomplished equestrian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's quite interesting as well.
But we have a lot of safety regulations.
Yeah.
So it's very important to have the right tuition, the right coach, and there's a lot of safety equipment these days as well. So yeah, I think, like in any sport, whether it's cycling or whatever, you have to be careful.
And wear a helmet.
and you have to put in your safety measures. The rules in the sport are also are more and more refined to make sure that that there's top safety at those events. Yes. Once you have a horse, or once you've ridden, then obviously you must decide if you want to then buy your own horse and which area or which discipline you're interested in, and then that's another whole story, because then you have to get all your equipment and so on.
And then the other thing, Sylvia, is that there are horse people who don't own their own horses, but they lease horses. And you have the situation where you have working riders. So they don't own horses, but they compete for other people who own horses.
That's quite interesting as well. Let's have a look and see what equestrian is all about. It's only one discipline of the sport, so bear in mind there are 13 more to equestrian that we might not see today. Sylvia, we saw that was polo cross, if I'm not mistaken. Tell us a bit about the sport.
Well, it's a great sport. It's a team sport, so not many of our disciplines have got team sports. Probably polo and tent pegging are the other two team sports. And this particular clip was the recent World Cup Championship that they had, and pleased to say that South Africa won. So it's a great sport. You can see the ref is also on horseback. It's a little bit like polo, only it's more like lacrosse, I suppose, if you were playing it without a horse.
And how does the actual game work? Like, how does one team beat the other team, Glenda?
Oh, well, it's a point scoring system,
Okay.
so it's about getting the ball, and you've seen the lacrosse kind of net.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you've got to get the ball and score.
Are there any more upcoming competitions within this month or soon?
Yes, this weekend alone we have endurance in Mariatsburg. So there they would be they start on Friday, tomorrow afternoon, and they start with something called a step ladder. So you'd have some horses doing just a 40-kilometer ride, and what some do is a back-to-back. So they do 40 kilometers tomorrow and maybe 40 the next day. No, you say, wow. The following day on Saturday is actually the 120-kilometer ride. And the 80-kilometer ride. And the 80 kilometer is also a step ladder, so which means that at any point during the ride, when they've finished a leg, the horse and rider combination may retire and still keep their distance. Should a horse be eliminated, then they forfeit the distance that they've actually covered, so it doesn't get recorded as a completed distance in their passports. And it's very competitive.
And then if I'm not mistaken, there's also a Horse of the Year competition coming up soon.
That's
Sylvia,
right,
how
yes.
does that work? How does the horses get judged?
Well, the Horse of the Year is an interesting competition in that it involves several different disciplines, and what they do is there's dressage and there's showing and there's show jumping, and they have those it's starting actually on Friday, and then it carries on Saturday and Sunday, with the finals on the Sunday, and then they overall decide which is the best or the most versatile horse over all the disciplines, or best of breed for the various disciplines. So that's happening at Mystico in Achterpaal on the weekend. It starts on Friday afternoon.
And then for the guys at home who want to come out and have a look, are they allowed to be there?
Oh, absolutely. They're welcome to come. They're welcome to come to Mariatsburg. They're welcome to come to Mystico over the weekend and have a look. There's no entrance fee, so they can come, they can watch and learn, get involved.
There's also show jumping in Constantia on Brommersvlei Road. It starts on Saturday. That's the main competition, is on Saturday. They are having smaller classes on the Sunday as well, but always a lovely place to go. That's at the grounds for the riding for the disabled, so it's always a lovely place and a lovely venue to attend.
And then there was the recent 10 pegging tournament in Paarl. How did that go?
That went off very well. South Africa won.
Lovely.
Oh, sorry, that was actually the juniors. So
Okay.
it was South Africa won it, and the girls won actually. They came first. The junior boys team came second, and England came third. Yeah.
So
we keep
our
holding the flag
guys
high.
are, you know, within the equestrian sport, we're actually in the top ranks, or how do we measure up internationally?
Well, it also depends on the discipline.
Okay.
So in endurance, for instance, we rank quite well. But then again, one has to be competing at FEI level to be doing that, to be ranking. So which means that our riders have to travel. And
Okay.
yes, and to travel because we only have so many FEI rides in the country. So they have to be that level, and your elite rider, to get your elite rider status, you really have to travel around the world to compete, and that's costly.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So regionally we do very well, but in the disciplines that are Olympic sports, which is dressage, show jumping, and eventing, it's more difficult because we can't take our horses easily overseas. So we have various limitations. However, there are people that are really starting to do very well abroad, and I'm sure we're going to see some medalists soon. We also have a gold medalist in the Paralympics, which is Philippa. She hails from Cape Town as well. We're very proud of her. So yes, we are
have
featuring.
representation.
For more information, for guys to get involved, who do they contact? How do they contact you?
Well, they can contact us at the Western Cape Equestrian Federation. You can look at our Facebook page or our website. And then there are lots of riding schools who they can contact to get involved.
Absolutely.
I think that's the place to start.
Yeah.
Would be at the riding schools. And you never know, somebody has a friend who has a horse and you can take them along, but make sure that safety comes first.
Glenda, thank you so much for being on our show.
It was a pleasure. Thank you for having us.
Sylvia, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Sadiq. It was a pleasure.
We'll see you guys after the break.